Hi, everybody. Just wanted to touch base with all of you again today and have a chance to talk some more about spiritual practices. And today we're going to be talking about prayer walking. Prayer walking is a wonderful spiritual practice that gives you the opportunity to get outside, to walk around, whether that's in your town or in the nature, surrounded by nature, wherever that may be. It's a great opportunity for you to, again, just to strengthen your relationship with God and with Scripture, and especially to work on your prayer life as an opportunity to have more conversations, more meaningful conversations with God. So, in order to do prayer walking, there's just a couple things that you're going to need to do to prepare. And the first is that you should spend some time thinking about where you're going to walk. You may want to go online and decide a path, or look at some maps that you have, find a location where you'd like to go to be able to do it. It can be right around town, right in your own neighborhood of where you live. Or if you live in a rural area, you're welcome to go out just on your property. Or maybe you want to go somewhere. It's important to know that a lot of our state parks, even though the facilities are closed, the trails are still open, and so you can get out into nature and be able to enjoy nature. And getting out into nature is one of, I think, the most powerful ways of doing prayer walking. So you want to find a place and be intentional about figuring out where you're going to walk, and the actual path that you're going to take. You'll want to consider taking just a little Bible with you, or maybe there's a specific word or phrase that you want to focus on or contemplate on while you're walking. Maybe you want to write down on a note card what that word or phrase is, or maybe there's a specific passage in the Bible, again, that you want to write on a little note card what that passage is. And then you want to consider just some questions. And usually the way I do this is that if there's a passage that I'm focusing on, I'll write the passage on a note card on one side of the note card, and then on the other side of the note card, I'll put different questions that I could ask and explore. So here are just a few questions that you might want to consider as you are getting ready to do your prayer walk. Where do you see God? What are the needs in my community? Where do I feel God's presence? What senses are being heightened while I'm walking? And what is God trying to say to me? Those are just a few of the questions that come to mind for me, but I'm sure if you took some time, you could think about some of your own. The major piece is just to take some real intentional time before you go out to prepare and to set some time up. This could be the kind of thing where you just kind of go out and see where God is leading you. But I have found, at least for me, that it's really helpful to come with a plan, to come with some ideas, some questions, something to sort of guide my time. So once you're all prepared and ready to go, now it's time to go out and take a walk. You'll take your items with you and you'll start to walk. Give yourself enough time so that way you don't feel like you have a specific deadline or a period of time that you are limited to. Make sure that you give yourself some wiggle room, so that way if your walk ends up taking a whole lot longer than what you thought it would be, that you're not constantly having to look at your watch and think to yourself that you need to get back. Make sure you give yourself that flexibility so you're not distracted by time and instead focused on your relationship with God and your conversation with God. Then you might, as you begin your walk, start with a word of prayer. Say hello to God, read the scripture, review the questions, whatever it is, and then begin walking. Then once you're out there, feel free to talk to yourself. This is one of those things, yes, you could certainly do it inside of your mind, but it's okay to speak out loud. I know that might feel a little awkward to people, but I promise you that you'll find that it's helpful just to have this conversation with yourself, answering these questions, and with God. And while you're out there, the next step would be to reflect. Reflect on the scripture passage and on the questions. This is a great opportunity that if you haven't already watched the video on Lectio Divina, go back and watch the video on Lectio Divina. You can actually do Lectio Divina during your prayer walk, or you can just use the questions that you've come up with in guiding that. But take some time to really consider what is it that God is saying to you as you're reflecting on these questions and reading reading the scripture, or focusing on a specific word, or focusing on your senses around you, those kinds of pieces. And then the next step is to respond. Just as we talked about in the spiritual practice of Lectio Divina, it's really important to reflect on how you see God in the world and how you hear God speaking to you. And in this step, it's really important to think about, okay, so what is God asking me to do? How is this having an impact on my life? So take some time and think about what that is. And then finally, the last step is to pray. Is to, as you're finishing up your prayer, I like to do this right before I enter back into my home, and just to lift all of that up into prayer and take some time to pray to God and to give thanks for the experience, and to reflect on what those next steps may be. Some people even take it a step further, and once they go into their home, is just to take some notes of what their experience did for them, what it was like for them. Writing down their thoughts is a way of reinforcing them. So that's walking prayer. I hope that you find that this spiritual practice will be super helpful for you in your prayer life, but also just give you something to do. I think it's especially important during this time when so many of us are just confined to our homes. It's great just to be able to get out and to walk, to get some exercise and to get some fresh air. So that's what we have for today, and I look forward to seeing you next week, or tomorrow, I'm sorry, when we talk about the spiritual practice from the Native American tradition of spirit animals. I'll see you soon.